Using your balance, switching positions and light temporary pressure of the legs should be enough to move your horse at all three gaits. My personal belief is that every horse can be ridden without spurs or a whip. Constantly kicking a horse in the flanks to move it is just a clear sign of inability from the rider to be understood by the horse. This video is to present the basics of walking, trotting and loping on the field. We will not deal with transitions, rhythm, speed, canter leads and lead changes. Yet from the very beginning, feel and timing are key principles to your good riding. Eventually, your cues should be so light and subtle that one should not be able to see what you are doing to move your horse at all three gaits. I selected two different horses to show different reactions. The first one is quite sensitive and does not need much to move. The second is quite dull on the contrary and needs more to respond to the leg. Your horse should probably be somewhere between those two. The first cue is always our changing position in the saddle, switching from position 3 to position 2. With the most sensitive horses, a light pressure of the calves as a second deal will be enough. After a few attempts, they will feel your position and respond at once. The cue to trot your horse should be light but steady. Squeeze your calves around its flanks and increase pressure until it starts to trot. Beware your timing. Release pressure and pet your horse as soon as it starts to trot, even if it's just for a couple of steps. You do not have to be in control of the direction at the beginning. It can come later. First, make sure you can get the trot and that your horse carries it. The dull horse is usually a dominating horse, or riding school's horses that have been kicked so many times that the leg became meaningless. Your first quality will be patience. Switch to position 2. Then bump your horse on a regular rhythm until it moves a leg. As soon as it does, stop everything and rub it. Repeat the operation until it starts to move after a couple of bumps. This issue can be taken care of during the very first session of work. If it takes you more than a couple of hours to deal with, that means your timing is not good. Pretty soon, your horse will respond at the first kick, if your legs remain still otherwise. A few more attempts and your horse will do the necessary to avoid the kick by starting as soon as you raise your legs. Make sure you're in control and do not bump it then. just apply your calves. Once the walk is acquired, you can move on to the trot. With dull horses, bumping will not be an option. Yet, as you want to teach a feeling, you should start with a light but steady squeezing of your calves before you start to bump. Squeeze a few seconds to let the opportunity to your horse to respond correctly before you start to bump. Pretty soon, squeezing will be enough to make a trot. Process is the same to canter your horse. There should not be any more sensitive or dull horse, as you have been through the process at the walk and at the trot. So first, squeeze your calves, then bump into its flanks until it lopes a couple of steps. Some horses are so dull that kicking will not be enough to move them forward. Since I do not like spurs and whips, I'd rather use my flag a couple of times to wake such horses up. Make sure they are desensitized to the flag before you apply such pressure. As usual, switch position, then squeeze your legs and finally flag its hind end. After a couple of times, simply showing the flag will be enough to get a response. Then, you can resume the normal learning process. Flag inactive, but in sight. Some particularly sensitive horses tend to back up when you apply pressure. Make sure you break the backing up motion as soon as possible, simply by leading your horse to the right or to the left. As soon as it moves one step sideways or forward, release pressure and pet it. Pretty soon, it will lose the habit to back up and will start forward when you apply pressure or when you bump. Remember this guideline. Do as less as possible to get a response, but as firm as necessary to be listened by your horse. The more you practice, the less you will have to do.